Right here. All right. Quick story, and mostly Qigong. Imagine a young child, pre-verbal, but still old enough to distinguish provider from someone else. And imagine that provider is a good provider, stability, and also let's imagine that same provider also has a propensity towards, I don't know, violence, alcoholism, something like that. Right there's the embodiment of yin-yang. You have provider and chaos, stability and chaos, all wrapped into a single role. And so from a young age, you understand that things can have multiple interpretations and that they're interdependent based on context and relationships and so on. So there's the embodiment of the Tao. And it turns out, if that's the case, when you get older and manage to make a connection to that, it has surprising results. Anyway, tonight's Qigong is fueled by lack of fuel. What I mean by that is I've been doing a lot of sort of mental processing and writing and such, and my brain is, I can tell my brain fuel is running low, and so I need to do some more recuperating because the middle way, you can't go on steam for too long before you finally collapse. I am doing the heart rate variability stuff now, so I did measure my heart rate, and it's a bit low. Heart rate variability is a bit low, but actually going back to earlier stuff, I can tell what now the sensation of increased astrocytic calcium fluctuations feels like in terms of energy levels, imperceptible energy levels in the brain. And really it's more like fits and stops as opposed to, so it's almost like, how would it be? It's almost like there's a consumption mode and then there's a hold back and then hold back and then another release rather than complete gradual. So it's almost like there's a sustained ride down to the edge, and it makes sense. I'm thinking from control theory, there's some kind of multi-level feedback loop going on there that seems to make sense. Anyway, okay, I'm rambling, and this is exactly the kind of stuff that I need to do. This kind of rambling is the kind of stuff I need to do Qigong. So I'm going to just go back into Qigong and worry about my breathing. I try to do some rapid tremors. No, I'm not warming up yet. Not warming up. I can warm up my spine a little bit, come back to shaking in a second. I'm sort of invalidating my heart rate variability experiment, but I suppose so long as I'm doing Qigong, I'm being active, I would expect my heart rate variability to go down, not up. But so far, it mostly goes up a little bit to 7.5 to 17%. At the range. But honestly, I hope the data confirms it, but I don't. It doesn't matter because the results from shaking have been obvious to me. And at the end of the day, since matter and value are all relative to the observer, bonus. Okay, I just start the timer. Okay, let's see. Nah, it's too tight. Nah, do it. trying to find new ways to get my body sort of shaking into resonant frequencies. I can occasionally do it, but that's actually something. You have to fail to get started. Here's an example for old folk. If you've ever heard the phrase, or actually ever done this, I have growing up on the farm, priming the pump. So if you have an old pump, there's no suction. You add water, doesn't go. And eventually that water primes, creates a seal, and allows water to come up. And due to pressure, it's like 32 feet max for a well or something like that for hand pumping. Unnecessary detail. But this notion of priming the pump, notice, your goal is water, say. So to start with, not only do you not get water, you have to give it water. So you're already starting net negative, and then nothing, and then nothing, and then nothing. And much like Weinberg says, nothing plus nothing plus nothing eventually equals something. And the paradox is you started negative to go positive, priming the pump. And that going negative is you gotta make mistakes. You don't want to make mistakes all the time. You want to learn a little bit. So the way you manage to live just on the edge of learning, really, is you find just the right amount of mistakes. 10%. There's research on this. It's 10%. So here's a concrete example. Let's say you want to learn to type faster. Do some typing tests. Find the speed at which you can type. Let's say it's 50 words a minute. Increase by 5 to 55%. Sorry, 55. That's 10%. You'll start to fail. That amount of failure will cause you to get a little bit better. Get to 55. Add another 5. That's 5.5. So let's just go to 60, right? You just get the idea. So what you do is you find a baseline for stability. You force instability, 10%, and then you get to a new stability. And that is a continual growth. It's a natural way to learn. It's a natural way to grow. And it's really a little bit of change plus a little bit of a change plus a little bit of change. Every so often what's going to happen is you're going to find some kind of concordance of things that's going to make things accelerate. Anyway, time to measure my HRV after that discussion that was supposed to be empty. But it wasn't. No, actually it was, if you think about it, because independent arising doesn't exist. Okay, I'm back from checking my HRV and the camera's a bit angled. That's good. Right here, back from taking my HRV. So 7 minutes of mostly shaking and a little bit of movement, even though I was gabbing and talking, and actually my mind wasn't exactly racing, but it certainly wasn't going slow either. My heart rate variability increased by 6, so 37 to 43. So what is that, 16%? That's not bad. So far it seems like a little bit of Qigong typically will increase my heart rate. Now, there's a counter to that. If I do Qigong in the morning, right before or after doing my heart rate, it will often greatly reduce it. So for example, I one time took my HRV, it was 67 in the morning when I woke up. And then after I did 5 minutes of Qigong, I think it was 40 something, 48 or something like that. Makes sense, because shaking is not actually, it's more of a homeostatic activity. Gentle shaking will, over time, tend to help your body restore to and set to a lower energy state. And I mean that in a literal sense. For example, mitochondria move up and down. And when they need to move to a different place because of energy consumption, they can move. This actually helps reduce them back to a neutral state. And in general, our whole body works that way in terms of it's a bunch of really complicated, complex systems, and this kind of random noise helps just sort of settle things down. And if you practice it enough and you sort of pay attention to, say, tension in your body, it's a tangible feel. So just for context, I've been practicing Tai Chi, let's say 13 years. And I would say probably like 3 weeks ago, I finally figured out that I was feeling energy. I just didn't know what to call what I was feeling. It was like, well, of course I can feel my tendons. Of course I can feel heat when I add pressure. That's Qi. That's all it is. I mean, there might be more of it. There might be more metaphysical, but honestly, we need to worry about metaphysical, because honestly, the metaphysical is this. I know I'm building up actual biomechanical energy in my body now. I mean, I can continue doing my HRV study. I don't have to. I'm feeling it, I'm experiencing, I'm living it, I'm embodying it. So it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter because if I can demonstrate an actual connection through some simple body work, then you've got embodied practice that actually is easy. It gives you about the same effects as meditation, and this is what it is. In fact, I can do it sitting. If you even, if you're in a limited space, the important thing is the change in direction. For you nerds out there, and again, I think this is right, when the second derivative goes to zero, you're changing directions. You're not bouncing fast enough to actually directly affect your internal systems. What you're doing is you're getting your body moving up and down, and since your body is not a solid, it acts more like a wave. The reflecting up and down is producing interference waves that reflect out randomly, and generally speaking, it helps. And I'll bet you if you pay attention to how your body is feeling, you can probably feel shapes that feel good. Like, for example, when I start to try to go really fast, if I can get it going, it like really gets, there's a whole bunch of energy going on, and it makes sense. I just ask my body, do something hard, send energy there. So energy, I mean, it's right there. You store it in your brain in astrocytic cells. You get rid of it by pumping your body. So this is just a good catch-all, good for stimulation, good for immune system and everything. Anyway, I'm done with that. I'm going to go do some stretching tonight. Tonight I'm going to show you a very simple combination of two poses that will be really good for your hips. Now, again, like anything, this isn't enough, but if you need anything, this will be great. So this is a great start. The two poses, I've already shown them recently, but I'm going to go ahead and do them tonight, and I'll do them for the full 5 minutes. So here's my suggestion to you. If you really want to see new hip freedom, try to get to the point where you can do, now we're going to do a total of 3 poses. The first pose is asymmetrical, so there's right side and left side, so 2 and 1. So 2 unique poses, but 3 total poses, 5 minutes each. By the time you get to 5 minutes each on these poses, you'll probably notice amazing upper body strength, stamina strength. You won't necessarily notice a lot of muscle, but you'll notice strength. You'll also be amazed at how much more flexible your hips are getting. And once you get to that 5-minute mark, you will start to notice amazing gains. Now, amazing gains, you might get a 1/4 inch, but if you get a 1/4 inch every week, it's truly amazing how quickly you can really get your body well tuned. And here's the great thing. You start doing this. Once you get to a point, you start doing other things, because doing this is going to enable those other things. And over time, you work up and down the full body chain, and you can basically repair your body. So this is an ongoing maintenance program that repairs your body, repairs your brain, and it allows you to typically be less reactive. So there we go. There's my spiel. I'm going to use a pillow for my back knee. I'm going to have the right leg front and the back leg first. Now, when I have my right leg front, like so, I'm going to hit the hamstring. Also going to be I'll be getting the adductors, and actually I'll be getting the abductors as well. I'm going to get it all. Also notice I'm going to be doing some diagonal stretching here as well. On the back leg is plantar flexion, straight back, knee down. That's what the pillow is for, knee down. I'm using this pillow. It slides and sticky, so I'm going to put it on the slide side because I'm going to be sliding back. So notice something like so, tabletop. Right foot comes up. Rotate right foot out. Give myself some support somehow. I could, in fact, I'll just demonstrate this. Why do I keep not demonstrating this? Here we go. So, right there, I'm really nicely already in the pose. I will start my timer. And when I do this, it really makes the pose a lot more intense, because now the weight of my torso is pushing into my groin. And so this is a nice add-on. But since I'm going for 5 minutes, and I would say, as you go longer in these poses, take your time getting into it. There's no rush. And also, I'll just point out, once you get past boredom and once you get good at doing these poses, you might find that about 3 to 4 minutes, you're really, really, really deep. And going to that 5th minute might actually be too much. So take your time. Slow and steady wins the race. Also, by taking your time, you can make more slow, gentle movements. And since you're not going so fast and the overall exposure or experience is slightly tuned down, you can practice experiencing it because the total number of stimuli coming into you is slow enough that you can actually focus your intention on, say, your hip flexor or your kitty who's sitting right next to you. But notice, so I'm showing you a technique here. I'm really not using any effort to hold myself right now. If you notice, I've collapsed my shoulder, but it's not bad. But also, this could be a stretch. My arm is locked out, and I've got my hand. This actually takes no effort. So this now is a place from which this allows my left side to collapse to the floor. And so now I'm also getting a nice stretch on my left hips. And if you happen to see the videos from last night, I was stretching my shoulders. This kind of stuff happens when you take your time stretching your shoulders. And I call that set thoracic fantastic. But props to the original source, All Yoga Body, Lucas Rockwood, for the stretch stuff. So now I'm going to show you another technique. I want to adjust, but I don't want to shift my weight because any kind of sudden movement can send a cascade reflex response. So I'm going to lock myself down here, shift my weight a little bit, balance, and then move gently. So I can very slowly go deeper in a controlled descent. On the way down, it's necessary to avoid the shock response. On the way back, it's necessary because if you avoided the shock response, you've shut your nervous system down so well that your leg's going to both be there and not be there. And once you start doing longer poses, you'll know what I mean. Until you do, you won't. It is a direct experience thing. Now you notice I'm moving through in and out. I'm doing this somewhat with a flow. It's not traditional, but I let my body decide what to do in the moment sometimes. And it knows what it needs to do. In this form, I believe it's called collapsed blaster, with a kitty punch, or kitty pet, I should say. Now, I wouldn't advise you to do much with your pets when you're stretching. However, I've been doing this now pretty much 5 to 7 times a week for about 4.5 years. And so I generally know what I can get away with. And actually right now I can feel my sock is sliding, so I need to stop. And I need to get myself back before that minor slide turns into something that causes a reflex response cascade. So I'm not going to do that, and I'm time to come out of the pose anyway. Okay, now to come out, curl your toes under and slowly push back. I got a nice big stretch in my right hamstring, and yeah, my left hip flexor. Whew. Now switch, same thing. Second pose. I'll go ahead and do this from the other side so you can see what it looks like from the different side. I'll just leave my glasses off because I'll probably end up taking them off again. And I will start somewhat symmetrically, though I'm not going to block what I'm doing here. So, tabletop. This time, closer. Right leg stays back. Left leg comes up, rotate. Now, actually, this is a bad idea. Sock on yoga mat, not good. Again, I've said this before, anything you can do to make it so that the way you're set up enables you to disappear, work on that. It's worth it. But now, my foot's not going to slide. I can now ignore my foot. It's just going to be in the right place. Poke yoke, I think, is the leading principle. Here we go. Again, notice. Locked out. If you want, you can use your first two knuckles only, not your pinky, not your ring, just your peace fingers. You'll hear some martial arts practices use the first three knuckles. And you can do whatever you want. I'm going to use two fingers. You know your body, but I suggest you only use the first two fingers. Okay, so now I'm going to actually lift this hand and let it hover. Just that adds just a little bit of weight, and it adjusts where I'm feeling the stretch. I'm not going to do it for very long. It's sort of what you can find is you sort of get yourself into a place, and then do an. So again, this is a keeping yourself balanced. I would also call this in Tai Chi an empty step if I were doing it with my feet. So now my left hand has all the force. I can let go of my right hand. And then let's change back again. Right hand takes the force. I now have double force. Now I relax. This is a smooth transition, and it is absolutely a Tai Chi empty step, except it's an empty palm move. And I don't know if Tai Chi empty palm move is a thing, but I just made it up if it is, because it's obviously what I'm doing. Obvious to me. I'm getting a bit of a hot spot in my elbow, so I'm going to adjust. But I'm still maintaining the same stretch that I did before. Play around, figure out how to, you're basically working with different directions of holds to sort of try to find just that right spot to stretch the muscle. And the only way you're going to find out is move. The only way to know where the edge of something is to hit the edge. And in knowing the edge and hitting the edge changes. And that is chaos, that is paradox, that is the initial failure necessary to expand yourself in such a way that you might be able to find new angles or perspectives that make the new reality just flow. Or you might not get pissed off in traffic. They're both the same, they're both empty, and they're both actually pretty handy. right now, my right hamstring is going through a bit of a, I don't know what to call it, so I'll call it like a localized cascade release. I can just feel it giving in certain places. And that's because with my right hand, the way I'm pressing it, I'm getting some pressure that's causing a sort of an entire stretch of that area. Now, I'm not over with the pose, but when I have a feeling like this and I'm at the end of a pose, I will stick it out, because when you're getting this kind of release, you're really getting a whole bunch of your sarcomeres to just sort of go, relax. And you know you're doing persistent change at that point. And see, right there, I just slid and just sort of, that actually sort of ruined it. Oh well, 2 seconds left, it's okay. But honestly, that little slip right there, with especially as deep as I am, it didn't hurt or anything like that, but that was it. I'm not going to go any deeper at that point. Oh, man. Let's see if I can get my leg working here. Yep. Whew, yeah. I got my leg. I mean, my leg is fine now. It's completely back, but there was definitely some numbness going on there. So that's 10 minutes right there. The last pose, if you're tired, you can go to bed right now and do the last pose. Lay on your back, put your feet together, and let your knees flail out. Maybe put your hands gently on your legs. Maybe put the comforter or something like that. But here's what I'm going to do. And in fact, you know what? I'm going to go to bed. I'm not going to record it, but I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay in bed. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to probably do it 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. I'll just put on some music, do some breathing work, and then pet Cheshire until I get tired enough that I just sort of fall asleep. I'm just going to say, I guess I will stay here for just a second because this is nice. Now, if you don't have a lot of time to do this, you could have someone step on your knees. I don't recommend that. That's what I used to do in Taekwondo stretching back in the early 90s. And I really don't want to tear anything. In any case, the one thing I will say about this pose, when you're done, especially if you've done it for 5 minutes, you're going to find right here, right there, it's going to be really, really, sore isn't the right word, but it's not going to really be very functional. If you try to use your muscles, if I try to squeeze, right there like that, you're going to feel it. So the secret to all of these poses is whatever muscle you just stretch, you don't want to use it until you get it back to a neutral position. So here I'm going to put my hands, I'm going to just bring my hands with my leg and just go, and you might have to actually, that's an option, or I also will sometimes basically actually go out a little bit and get my foot under one leg at a time. And then if you need to, shake it side to side, or maybe just a gentle shake or whatever. But I'm going to go to bed now. I'm going to do that for a bunch. And truly, if you do this for a while, your hips are going to open up. Now, and also for real, a lot of people hold a lot of tension in their hips, and those are somatic memories. And this is my own self-knowledge. I'm just telling you this. My hips are not something that has done that for me, but I've had that in my chest and in my solar plexus and so on. And so hips are notorious for really doing big releases. So just be prepared. It might happen. And also don't worry about it. Don't attach. Not a big deal. It's just something got let go. And your ego is probably going to want to know what it is. Guess what? Doesn't matter. Because the act of releasing it in the body, and I have no theory to practice this, I just know this is the case. I mean, it's necessarily the case by emptiness. But if I release something in my body, since that thing in my body is almost certainly somehow associated with a memory, the weakening of one side has to weaken the other side. It just happens. The connection is just too direct in the body. And I'll tell you that I've released stuff in my muscles, and I can tell something is getting rewired in my brain. So I can guarantee you that that may not be your path, but that's my path. So have a good one.